Welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about Cameco,
Okay.
and that's trading under the ticker symbol CCJ.
Okay.
You know, with the world shifting towards cleaner energy sources,
Yeah.
the nuclear energy sector is making a comeback,
Mm-hmm.
and that's putting companies like Cameco in the spotlight.
Right.
So is this dip in their stock price like a buying opportunity,
Mm.
or is this a warning sign? Let's find out.
It is pretty interesting to see this
Yeah.
renewed interest in nuclear energy after it being sidelined for so many years.
Right.
You know, the push to reduce carbon emissions has
Yeah.
really brought nuclear back into the conversation
Right.
as a really reliable source of clean energy.
Absolutely. And Cameco just released their Q4 2024 earnings report.
Yeah.
And I was impressed. I mean, they beat earnings per share estimates,
Right.
coming in at 37 cents
Wow.
compared to the predicted 32 cents.
Yeah. They did really well.
They did.
Their revenue also topped expectations, hitting $1.2 billion, a 21% year-over-year increase.
That's huge.
It is. It really shows how strong they are operationally
Right.
across all their business segments.
That's right. Now, their report also mentioned favorable nuclear power fundamentals for 2025.
Yes.
So can you explain, like, what are these fundamentals and
Cameco.
why do they make Cameco such an attractive investment?
Absolutely. So one of the biggest factors here is the global goal to triple nuclear capacity by 2050.
Okay.
It's ambitious.
Wow.
To meet those net zero emission targets.
Right.
So this huge demand for nuclear power
Yeah.
means a huge demand for uranium.
Right.
And that's Cameco's, bread and butter.
Right. That makes total sense. So we've got a company with solid financials operating in a sector projected for major growth.
Right.
You'd think their stock would be going through the roof,
You would think.
but it's down over 25%
Yeah.
in the past 3 months. What gives? What's going on?
Well, there's a lot of general market uncertainty right now,
Mhm.
which is affecting all commodity prices,
Right.
including uranium.
Okay.
We're just seeing a correction across the board.
Okay, so that's part of it.
Yeah. And then there was that temporary halt in production
Right.
at the Inkai mine in Kazakhstan,
Oh, right.
which is a joint venture between Cameco and Kazatomprom.
Right.
And I think that really shook investor confidence.
Makes sense. So what about these rumors
Yeah.
about potential U.S. tariffs
Right.
on Canadian energy products?
Mm-hmm.
Does that pose a risk to Cameco, given that, they're a Canadian company?
It's something to think about for sure,
Yeah.
but Cameco seems to have planned ahead on this one.
Okay.
They've included clauses in their contracts that would
Mhm.
allow them to pass those tariffs onto their buyers.
Okay.
So it might actually work out in their favor in the long run.
Oh, that's interesting. Could you explain that a bit more, how that worked?
Sure. Basically, if tariffs were imposed,
Yeah.
Cameco wouldn't be stuck with the extra cost.
Okay.
It would go straight to the companies buying the uranium, which protects Cameco's profit margins,
Oh,
even in a, less than ideal situation.
that's a pretty smart strategy.
Yeah.
So we have this situation now where some analysts are super bullish on Cameco. Like Bank of America is predicting their stock could hit $97.
Wow.
And Canaccord Genuity set an $85 target.
Right.
But then you see people on X saying it could drop to like the $33 range.
Mhm.
How do we make sense of this? I mean, these are like completely opposite predictions.
Well, it's important to remember that market sentiment and
Yeah.
fundamentals don't always match up.
Right.
Cameco's financials are strong. The demand for uranium is growing. They're making strategic investments like they're drilling plans at their Smart Lake joint venture.
Okay.
All these signs point to a positive future.
Right.
But market volatility and things like Cameco's price-to-earnings ratio being 162 can make investors pretty anxious.
Right. Now, for those of us who aren't like financial experts,
Sure.
could you explain what a price-to-earnings ratio is
Of course.
and why it matters in this case?
So the price-to-earnings ratio, or PE ratio,
Okay.
compares a company's stock price to its earnings per share.
Right.
So a high PE ratio, like Cameco's, means that investors are banking on big earnings growth in the future.
Okay.
But it can also mean the stock is overpriced.
I see.
It's a bit of a gamble.
So for our listeners who are, thinking about investing in Cameco, what's the bottom line? What should they be looking at?
It depends a lot on your investment style and your risk tolerance. If you're a long-term investor and you believe in the future of nuclear energy, this dip might be a chance to buy low.
Okay.
Especially if the stock stays above those key support levels.
Yeah.
Like $42.
Okay.
But if you're more risk-averse, you might want to wait for a clearer sign that the market has bottomed out.
Yeah.
Or that uranium prices are on a more solid upswing.
All right. I think that's a good place to pause for now.
Okay.
We've talked about Cameco.
Yeah.
We've talked about the uranium market, their earnings, the potential of nuclear energy.
Absolutely.
Why their stock dipped.
Yes.
And even, conflicting opinions from analysts.
Right.
But this is just the beginning of our look into Cameco.
You've talked about the upside of Cameco's financials and their position in the market. But it's important to look at the risks too.
Right.
What could go wrong?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of, potential growth story.
Yeah.
But you have to look at the whole picture.
Exactly.
So what are some of the things that could derail Cameco's plans?
Well, one of the biggest risks is just how volatile the uranium market is.
Okay.
Uranium prices have been going up lately. Yeah. But historically, they've been all over the place.
Right.
Things like geopolitical events, supply disruptions.
Right.
Even just changes in government policy can make prices skyrocket or plummet.
So even if the demand for uranium is there long-term, these short-term price swings could really hurt Cameco.
Absolutely.
And its investors.
Yeah. Another thing to keep in mind is the regulatory landscape.
Okay.
A lot of countries are embracing nuclear power as part of their clean energy plans.
Yeah.
But there's always the chance that regulations could change or there could be safety concerns.
Right.
Or even just public opposition that could really slow down the industry's growth.
And then that would obviously affect the demand for uranium.
Exactly.
It's all connected.
Make a domino effect.
And then there's the competition.
Yeah.
Cameco is a major player, but they're not the only one.
Right. They've got competition from other uranium producers, especially in Kazakhstan.
Right.
They have the world's biggest uranium reserves.
That's right. And speaking of Kazakhstan, we talked earlier about Cameco's joint venture with Kazatomprom for that Inkai mine. So how does Kazatomprom being in the market affect Cameco?
Well, Kazatomprom is a state-owned company.
Okay.
And they're a real force in the uranium industry.
Right.
They have a lot of control over the global uranium supply. And if they change their production plans or their pricing strategies, it can impact the entire market.
So it's not just about looking at Cameco.
No.
You have to understand what's happening in Kazakhstan and with all the other big players.
Exactly. You need to understand how the whole market works.
Yeah. Okay, so earlier we mentioned those analysts who are really bullish on Cameco, Bank of America, and Canaccord But then we also talked about people on X being really bearish.
Right.
Some are saying the stock could crash to $33. How do we reconcile these totally different views?
It all comes down to fundamentals versus sentiment.
Right.
The fundamentals we've been discussing, Cameco's financials, the growing demand for uranium, their smart investments. These all look good long term.
Okay.
But market sentiment, which is driven by news rumors, speculation, and sometimes just fear or greed, can really mess with stock prices in the short term.
So those people on X who are predicting a big drop,
they
could just be reacting to short-term fears.
That's a possibility.
Okay.
Social media can be an echo chamber for both positive and negative sentiment. So you have to be careful with what you read online.
Absolutely. So for someone who's not a pro investor, trying to figure all this out, what are the most important things to keep in mind when thinking about investing in Cameco?
Focus on the fundamentals.
Okay.
Do your research. Understand the risks. And don't get swept up in the hype. Whether it's positive or negative, make your own decisions based on good information and a realistic view of how much risk you're comfortable with.
That's great advice. Now, before we move on, I want to go back to something you said about support levels. You said that long-term investors might see this dip as a buying opportunity. Especially if the stock stays above a certain level. Can you explain what a support level is?
Sure. A support level is basically a price point. Where a stock tends to attract buyers. So when the price drops to that level, buyers are more likely to jump in. And that keeps the price from falling further.
So for Cameco, $42 is seen as a key support level.
Yeah.
So if the stock stays above that,
exactly,
it could mean the downward trend is losing steam.
Right.
And we might see a rebound.
It's a sign to watch for.
So we've explored a lot about Cameco, their potential, their strategy in the uranium market.
Right, the risks and challenges they're facing.
Absolutely.
But there's one more crucial piece we need to talk about.
Right.
Their commitment to sustainability.
So welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast. We're continuing our conversation about Cameco.
Okay.
And we're going to talk about their approach to sustainability.
Right.
It's not just about profits anymore.
No.
Investors also want to know if companies are doing things the right way, minimizing their environmental impact.
Yeah.
Contributing to a sustainable future.
Absolutely. And Cameco seems to be on top of this.
So let's dive into what they're actually doing. What kind of sustainability initiatives have they implemented?
Well, for one thing, they've set some pretty ambitious targets for reducing their greenhouse gas emissions.
Okay.
They're putting money into renewable energy sources to power their operations, and they're trying to improve energy efficiency across the board.
So they're walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Exactly. They're putting their money where their mouth is.
And what about mining practices?
That's another big focus for them.
Okay.
They're really committed to responsible mining, minimizing land disturbance, protecting water resources, and working with local communities to make sure everyone benefits.
Yeah, that's super important.
Yeah. Uranium mining can be controversial.
Right.
So it's crucial for Cameco to show that they're doing things ethically and with respect for the environment.
Absolutely. And it seems like they're doing a good job.
Yeah, they've actually won a bunch of awards.
Oh, wow.
For their sustainability performance. Corporate Knights named them one of the world's most sustainable companies.
Okay.
Several years in a row.
That's pretty impressive. But we have to address the elephant in the room.
Yeah, the nuclear waste issue.
Right. It's a major concern for people when it comes to nuclear power.
Of course.
So how's Cameco dealing with that?
They're definitely not ignoring it.
Okay.
They're big advocates for safe and secure storage of nuclear waste.
Right.
And they're putting money into research and development to find long-term solutions for managing that waste.
So they're actively trying to be part of the solution.
Exactly. They understand that the future of nuclear power depends on finding good solutions for the waste problem.
Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about social responsibility.
Okay.
What's Cameco doing to make sure their operations are actually benefiting the communities where they work?
Well, community engagement is a top priority for them, especially in Canada, where most of their operations are.
Right.
They work closely with Indigenous communities to make sure their projects respect Indigenous rights and interests.
So it's not just about taking resources.
Right. It's about building relationships and creating shared value.
And are they doing anything else?
Yeah, they also invest in community development, support local businesses, and create jobs for people in those communities.
Sounds like they're really trying to make a positive impact.
Yeah, on a lot of different levels.
So we've covered a ton of ground today.
Yeah.
Cameco's financials, their potential for growth.
Right.
The risks they face.
Yeah.
And their commitment to sustainability.
Absolutely. It's been a really interesting discussion.
It has, and I think it shows that investing isn't just about profits.
Right.
It's also about supporting companies that are doing the right things.
Yeah, companies that share your values.
Exactly. So what do you think about Cameco? Is this a company you'd consider investing in?
It's definitely one to watch.
Let us know what you think in the comments.
Yeah, and while you're there, don't forget to subscribe to Investing Talk Podcast.
Yes, please subscribe.
And share this episode with your friends.
We'd love to have more people join the conversation.
We're always looking at new investment opportunities.
So stick with us.
We'll see you next time for another episode of Investing Talk Podcast.